Yak Gadget, made in America, based outside of Nashville, Tennessee. Yak Gadget offers all kinds of storage accessories, quick mount motor mounts, anchor systems, track mounted accessories, even paddles. Go to yakgadget.com and get your kayak decked out for your next trip out on the water.
The 153 Bait Company, based in Troy, Ohio, make everything from plastics to custom painted hard baits. Hook 'em hard and hook 'em often. All of our baits are made to order, and all of our hard baits are hand painted to order. So go to the153anglers.com to place your order today.
Based in Santa Ana, California, Bioenno Power provides the highest performance lithium-ion phosphate batteries for the marine market. These batteries are 1/4 the weight of sealed lead-acid batteries, provide over 2,000 to 3,000 charge cycles, and a 10-plus year service life. These batteries can be used for any deep cycle application, including running fish finders, trolling motors, live wells, and LED lights. For more information, visit bioennopower.com. That's BIOENNOPOWER.com or contact dealers nationwide.
Welcome to the Paddle and Fin Podcast Network. This is the final cast segment with your hosts Brad Hicks and Josh Eldridge, where we cast our final opinions on all products good and bad. Welcome to the final cast.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the final cast. I'm Josh.
I'm Brad.
And tonight we have two guests, the owners from Yakrods. We have Scott Oliver. Hey, Scott, what's up?
Hi. Hey, doing good. How are you?
I'm doing well. We have Tandi Foil as well. And I want to welcome both of you to the show. Thank you for taking the time to speak with us. How are you guys doing?
Doing great. Thanks for having us on.
Good.
Awesome. So like I just previously mentioned, these are the owners of Yakrods. They reached out to us in regards to wanting to do an episode, and I thought it was obviously fitting since we are a kayak fishing podcast to have them on. You guys are making rods specialized for kayak fishing, and I'm excited. I'm super excited to talk to you guys. I've been taking a look at the rods. They're high quality rods. And so I think we'll get into it. First off, Tandi, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself? Tell us what got you into kayak fishing?
Sure. I am a wife and mother. I have 7 kids. We started having kids at 19, but our youngest 2 boys really love to fish. So we wanted to get them competitively, but we couldn't afford a boat. So we started kayak fishing, and it's just gone from there. I think we've been kayak fishing for 10 years now with the boys. So yeah, we love it. It's our family sport. The boys were actually in soccer and organized sports, but the rest of the family just kind of had to sit on the sidelines and, be drug around to all these different practices. So we got into fishing because everybody could do it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I want to ask real quick, just because you said you've been in kayaks for 10 years, how much has it changed since you first started?
Well, a lot for us. We started in these little yard sale kayaks. In fact, I still use our barbell for my anchor just for nostalgia.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's changed a lot.
Awesome. And where do you live at?
I live in Hayden, Idaho.
Okay.
Yep. Are you familiar with where that's at?
Not at all. I mean, I know where Idaho is, but
me and Josh are in Ohio.
Yeah. Okay. Well, people get Idaho and Ohio mixed up a lot.
Yeah.
We're on the panhandle of Idaho, kind of up north by Canada.
Okay. I bet there's some awesome smallmouth fishing up there.
We have world-class smallmouth fishing. It's kind of a secret. People really don't know about it. Lake Pend Oreille is world-class. I mean, it's pretty stellar to be out on that water and get big ones constantly.
Yeah.
I know. I'm jealous. I
know about it. I know about the smallmouth up there just because we had David Foyt from NRS on our show once, and
nice.
He was talking about it.
Yeah, Brandon Polinick. I mean, he grew up right around the corner from where I live. So,
Very cool. Scott, you want to introduce yourself? Tell us how you got into the kayak fishing game.
Yeah, so I'm Scott Oliver. I've been fishing since I was a little kid, honestly, and coming up here, so I moved up to North Idaho. I'm right outside. I'm in Coeur d'Alene, so it's the next city over from Tandi. And I moved up here in 2011 and decided, I was a bank fisherman pretty much my entire life. Anytime I can get out in the water on a boat or something like that, I would. But for the most part, it was just kind of always dreaming about getting out there. And I think it was like a Greg Blanchard video I stumbled across and didn't even know that this whole kind of, world of kayak fishing was available to you, and that it was something that could get you out there and get you away from the bank and exploring the water. So, after doing probably way too much research on the perfect kayak, and there's never a perfect kayak, but finally decided, well, I don't know. Now that I got the Hobie, I might say it might be the perfect kayak, but
Yeah.
Finally got out there and started kayak fishing. So I've been doing it for about 5 years or so now. And just love it. Absolutely love it.
Awesome.
Scott's a firefighter, by the way. He's always so humble, but he has a really important other job.
Yeah.
Cool.
One of our own hosts is a firefighter in Chicago. So
Oh, nice.
Shout out to JP. But so let's skip the story on how Yakrods got formed and where you guys came up with that idea.
Yeah, so I guess to tell the story, so it was myself, Tandi, and another gentleman, Jim Cross, had kind of formed a local circuit here, and we're trying to promote kayak fishing here in the area. We had a club that had just kind of closed down after a little while, and we were trying to help promote the sport, get more people into it. The area here, there's a ton of people that kayak fish. They just don't know about the competitive side, the tournament side. So we were really trying to push that and try to showcase it and really show people that you could get out there and really utilize the resources that we have. I mean, especially in this area, there are just so many lakes and so many bodies of water for people to really explore. And anyway, through all that and doing the circuit and whatnot, we started kind of talking about the things that we like naturally, as you do, about rods that we liked, experiences that we've had. We fished a lot together, and kind of through that, this idea that we could potentially come up with or tailor a rod to a kayak fisherman and to the experience that they want to have, kind of formed. And from that, we just started tinkering and started telling ourselves, what is it that we would look for in a rod and what exactly we wanted and things that we didn't want. And through, probably over the course of an entire year, with just trial and error and trying different blanks and different products and different components, we whittled it down to, what is essentially blackline now.
Well, and honestly, starting fish for everybody, fishing with kids or newbies, everybody's losing a rod. And we wanted to get away from that with a tether system. We call it the NTA system. That stands for Not the Abyss.
I've done it a few times.
Yeah, it's just horrible. Well, and with kids, I don't know how many times, they're on the front of my kayak and they're either catching my rod or their rod's just getting chucked way out there. And our water up here is cold, so you can't just dive in a lot of times. But so we wanted to put a rod together that we wanted as a kayak angler.
That's cool. I'm gonna pull this. I'm gonna pull the graphic up one more time, just because let everybody on YouTube see this. Pretty cool setup you guys have here. It looks like you guys have a short butt there too, right?
Yeah. So we went. Some of the companies that are kind of producing other kayak rods at this point, essentially what they've done is they've kind of created a little bit shorter of a handle, and we see the value in that, especially from a seated position, things like that, trying to maneuver the rod around so it doesn't snag your PFD. So we went with a slightly shorter handle, And one of the things that we really worked on and really tried to refine, like I said, not only with the retention system, but the balance of the rod. So what you see there with the cap there at the end of it is essentially where you would leash the rod, but it also serves as a counterbalance. So with the short handle, now all of a sudden you bring that balance point back towards the reel seat, and you get a really comfortable kind of just, it's a really comfortable experience. It's just something that you just got to pick up a rod and throw a reel on it and go fish with it for a little while. It's a lot of fun, and it just feels really good in hand.
I don't think I've ever seen one with a counterweight like that.
So this was interesting. I was just at Lake Fork, and a lot of the guys fishing the kayak tournament there, the Bass Open, were taping weights, like literally duct taping weights to their rods to get the right balance. So it was cool to hand them our rod and, try this out. We're already balanced. But it's interesting to see that, they're going through that lengths, because especially in a kayak, you don't want it tipping forward.
Yeah. Heck yeah. Yep. You guys want to go over what materials you used to make that end cap, and what kind of weight did you have to utilize to get it to balance properly?
You want me to hit
Tandi?
Okay.
Oh yeah, Tandi did some research on this. So
yeah, so it's an aluminum cap, and we kind of had to fine tune the weight with the amount of epoxy that goes in there. So the actual weight varies from cap to cap, because we have bigger caps for bigger rods, but it's trial and error, really. I mean, we had to go through a lot of end caps to get the right feel for each rod.
I believe it. We've talked to other rod manufacturers before, and we always ask the question, do you have a kayak specific rod? And they're like, oh, well, it's kind of hard to get the counterweight balance. And just like I said a little bit ago, I don't think I've seen one. Josh, you might have. You were going to say something, but
yeah, I think I've even seen St. Croix has a Yak series, if I remember correctly. And I've seen a couple like smaller, companies that have made them, but nothing's really, not that it's not taken off. It's just, on a smaller scale. Mm-hmm. But, I don't know. Like, I've heard a lot of times that people will say that they prefer like just the standard, mm-hmm. because they're like, well, I stand up anyway so much, so there's really kind of no reason to it. But, for those kind of guys that not everybody is fishing like that. You get out on some of these big lakes like the Great Lakes, or if you're into ocean fishing, and it's not always advisable to be standing up. So if you are and a lot of times they even say, if you're in big water and you're in a kayak, please don't use a self-inflate. Go ahead and put on an NRS or whatever, where you don't have to worry about that. And as soon as you get one of those bulky PFDs on, I'm always catching my PFDs with my rods.
Yeah, me too.
All the time. So, and I don't even throw like super long handled rods, but I've got a couple that are a little on the longer side. But I mean, to be honest with you, even if I used a short one, I'd probably still somehow tangle myself up. But I was looking at that end cap, so I'm assuming the tether is attaching on the bottom of that. And is it like already installed, the tether itself, or is that something you can take on and off?
You can take it on and off. Go ahead, Scott.
No, it's all right. It is something that you can take on and off. So essentially it's been, we've kind of created it so that you would just kind of girth hitch it around, just exactly like that. That's kind of on the screen. You're just going to go ahead and girth hitch it around the cap. And it's a nice snug fit. It's pretty quick and easy. We bring them in, we have a couple different sizes. So, every rod ships out with a 3.5 foot, tether initially. So, great for, being able to, cast seated. If you want it in the back, just kind of keep your rod stored in the back, just so you have a little bit of, security. We've got a lot of guys that are like inshore fishermen that do a lot of red fishing with bass rods and things like that. And they prefer this, especially when they're getting out there, being able to leash their rods and such. And then, we have a longer 5.5 foot that we would recommend if that was something that you wanted to do and you wanted to be able to stand and cast, and then that option's out there as well.
What is that tether material made out of? It looks like some kind of nice flexible material.
Yeah, it's solid PVC.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
Heck yeah. That's awesome. It's a good idea. So do you have people that are like tethering while they're, using the rod to like their PFD?
Yep. In fact, a youngster did that on my kayak today while we were out. He just hooks it right to his kayak. The 3.5 foot is perfect for him. And what's so cool about the tether is hooking to the bottom like that. It's totally out of the way of casting. The hand by the reel seat. Usually you have to hook it somewhere right there if you're going to tether. So yeah, it's just out of the way. You can hook it anywhere you want.
Never thought about doing that. That's an interesting idea. I like it.
Yep.
Yeah, and the handle itself.
Mine doubled as a tow rope today too.
They're that strong, huh?
Well, I wouldn't recommend it, but yeah.
That's awesome.
Go ahead, Scott. What were you saying?
Oh, I was just going to say too, for the guys that are kind of worried about how short the actual handle is. So when we kind of messed around quite a bit with the size of the handle itself, we didn't take it to an extreme. It's essentially on average about 1 inch to 1.5 inches shorter than the average rod, just enough so that you're just kind of, as you're casting, you're not clipping yourself. So we found that to kind of work the best while still kind of giving that same feel. Also, having that full-length handle, that was something else that playing around with like split grip versus full-length handle, we felt like the full-length made it almost feel like you had a full-length handle. I mean, it just at this point, I don't even notice a difference between the two.
Right.
Scott's a big jerkbait guy, and the jerkbait rod is phenomenal for that. I mean, it doesn't get caught under his arm, and it just works great for that.
Well, you guys got jerkbait season all year long up there, don't you?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Well, according to me.
Even if it's not.
I'll jerkbait all year.
Well, that makes a lot of sense, though, because, I mean, I could see where this rod would really excel in using baits or techniques where a lot of rod motion is needed, if you're just chucking out a whopper plopper and you're just reeling it back in, like who really cares what the length is? But if you're going to be sitting there using a jerk bait or, something that's going to take a lot of side to side action like that, that's going to definitely, prove to be a much better option than then sitting there throwing some of a full length handle, like with the split grip or whatever. Let's get into what kind of grip you guys are using too, because I think that'll plays into the fact that it's a shorter handle that, it looks like you guys didn't, you went with a really good brand that a lot of people are familiar with when it comes to the grips.
Yeah, go ahead, Tandi.
Okay.
I'll let you.
So yes, wind grip. We went with that. Scott has a paddling background, so grip was important to him. He knew the different feels and stuff like that. I like the way it looks, and I like the reputation of Wind. We just didn't want to skimp out on any of our components. We could have thrown a cheap EVA junk on there. We wanted to get what we could and try to still keep the price down, what's reasonable for people, but we didn't want to skimp out on any area of the rod. So the wind grips made sense.
And the wind grips are comfortable too. I mean, they're real nice and soft.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that was kind of the big thing for us. Essentially up here, we fish a lot of cold water, paddling for the years that I did. You get drip on your hands start to get cold, you're releasing fish. After a while, you kind of just, your fingers get a little numb, and being able to grab onto that grip, and it kind of just kind of just molds to your hand. That was a big deal for us. That was something that not only was it just, it was good in hand. It felt good. It felt secure. It didn't feel like it was going to get slick after a while. It didn't, kind of EVA, you catch enough and all of a sudden you kind of get that slime on it and it just kind of feels a little slick. But it was just something that, we really enjoyed the feel of. Part of like when we kind of designed the rod, I mean, when I say like we obsessed over every little aspect of this rod, we really did. I mean, from the grip, that like the tactile feel. So like that was really big to us, was when somebody picked up the rod and put it in their hand, like how did it feel? How did it mold in your hand? Like the reel seat's a soft touch fabric. So it's got like a soft touch top coat over it, which has like this kind of cool, almost like leathery, rubbery kind of feel to it. So like the reel seat and the handle, they kind of just mold together and they give you like this just kind of cool feel in hand that, it just feels really secure. So we really kind of, I'm going to just say obsessed about every little detail about this and going back and forth. Like I said, we had quite a few iterations in our minds as far as where we wanted to take it. But yeah, we had a lot of fun kind of playing around with each component.
And we learned, what was so eye-opening to me is what I learned was a lot of rods, they're putting junk on there.
Yeah.
I learned the cost of reel seats now, and I learned the cost of grips, and some of these rods that they're charging even the same price as ours, it's not justified,
Right. Yeah, I know what you mean.
I'm kind of excited. I'm sitting here looking at the rods, and you guys have a feature that is like one of my favorite things on any fishing rod, is where you have around the trigger any type of like exposure to that blank so you can feel that sensitivity. That's pretty cool that you guys incorporated that in there as well, considering that you shortened up the handle. So
it's actually an insert. So when you touch that piece, it's an insert, but we've put another piece inside of the rod when we actually build it that comes in contact with that insert to actually move the vibration through that insert. So a lot of times if you just epoxy, it's not going to catch that vibration, unless you have the real blank. But that's an insert that does transfer the vibration.
Oh, interesting.
Awesome. Yeah.
What kind of reel seats are you guys using?
Sea Guides.
Okay. I don't know if I'm familiar with those or not.
And what does what's the benefit for having a double locking nut? Because I've seen a lot where it's just single. So
yeah, I think the idea just being that over time singles will tend to, you always kind of have to go back and kind of, rework them, kind of retighten them down. The thought being that with a double locking, you're not really going to have that issue. It's not going to kind of back out on you over time. Repeated casts all day. If you're out on the water day after day, you can put it in there, keep it secure, and you're not having to kind of worry about it. It just keeps everything nice. Like I said, it's one of those. It's a small feature that you feel like. It's just one of those things that we wanted to add to it. That we wanted to have like that, just a little bit extra. When it was something that we wanted on all of our rods, that we didn't want to have to constantly go back through and tighten it and play around with it.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, and kayak anglers are not easy on their gear. So we wanted to make it just anything we could add extra to kind of beef it up.
I mean, we love shutting them in car doors and all doors and
stepping on them on the deck of your kayak.
Sitting on them,
all the time.
Cramming them into the truck or
using them to push off.
I haven't done that yet, Tandi, but
I have.
Never say never, right? But oh man, I broke one in the door last year. I broke another one with a catfish. I've thrown 3 rods into the water. I lost my favorite rod the first time I took my kayak out. I should have known that. First time ever out on my kayak my first one I bought out in Nakusa over there by what's it? East Lake. What is it called, Brian? Eastwood Lake.
Yeah.
And I had it in a little holder and it has the bungees on it, and I didn't bungee it properly, and I was paddling. I hit the handle to the spinning reel and pulled it right out, and it could have fallen in a worse place either, man. It was literally in like 10 feet of water, but everything underneath like is just sticks and limbs. That the whole side of that lake is sticks and limbs. So I'm like, even if I graphed it and found it, it's gonna look like everything else that's underneath me right now. So
I know. Yeah. So I've lost a few in like only a few feet of water, but it's all slime. So I'm not going down there. Yeah. I might send my son, but
I saw recently a story somebody was talking about in our local trail group that they lost some rods. They were going to go get some scuba gear and go after them. I was like, really? That's dedication, man.
Well, a lot of these rods have a lot of money wrapped in them, right?
That's
true.
That
is true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Luckily, the ones I've lost weren't super expensive. I mean, but you think about it, like even like a medium price range, you're still kind of sad, you know? It's like, dude, you know, like it's like $200 or $300 down the drain. You're like, that sucks,
dude. I got mad that I broke a $60 rod.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, no, my first tournament. So I was fishing. It was my first tournament. I was all excited. I was out there, caught my first fish in the tournament. It was a KBF monthly, and I was trying to figure everything out, trying to figure out the board. And I reached behind me, set the rod what I thought was back, and before I know it, the thing was over. So my very first introduction to tournament fishing was losing a rod on my very first fish. So
yeah, that'd be rough.
Yeah.
At that point, you're kind of like, why am I doing this?
Yeah, exactly. Or how much is it going to cost me?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's $300 right there. Yeah.
Then you know you're like, I got to win this tournament now.
He wins tournaments. He can afford it.
Let's get into the blanks. What kind of blanks are you guys using? You want to elaborate on, you know, what's making these stand out above the rest?
That is Scott's
department. Yeah, so yeah, I kind of nerd out on all of this stuff. Yeah, we kind of played around with a lot of different blanks. We tested a lot. We kind of started looking at materials, whether we were going to go glass, we were going to go composite. Composite was a big one. Or if we were going to try to go 100% graphite and just stick with that. And through it, we found that, you know, a lot of the graphite rods, we really liked the lightness of it. We liked the response that we were getting. But part of the problem that we kind of had was that they just were a bit too stiff. So, you know, when you get a fish close to the boat and you're trying to net it and it's right there, right next to you, it just didn't have necessarily enough bend in it, or you end up losing a fish on it when they go to jump. And it was frustrating. We tried a number of different blanks. And so through kind of going around and looking, we kind of settled on, and tried and true, they've done a lot of R&D work, but we settled on the St. Croix SD4, which is the Legend Tournament Series rod blank. So it's a fantastic blank. It's 100% graphite, but it's got a great bend. It's super responsive. And we just really liked it. Everyone that we handed it to, every test we had, just people came away just impressed with it. So it was the one we settled on for Blackline.
Nice.
Okay. And most anglers are familiar with St. Croix and like how popular that line of rods is. And, you know, I hear nothing but good things. I've personally never gotten to fish with one yet. I'd like to someday, but I've heard nothing but good things about it. So it's really cool. You guys are. Your
address.
What's that?
You need to send us your address.
Okay. But it's I'm just impressed really by what you guys are doing with this. You know, this could be, I don't want to say like a gimmick type thing. It could be like one of those things you're like, oh, well, we were making rods, you know, for kayaks, but we're just going to just shorten the rod butt, and we're going to use super cheap components and see if we can make a profit out of this just because we're making it, you know, kayak specific. You guys are using really, really good, well known in the industry components, and that's really cool. I commend you for that because it would be easy to go the other direction with it, and
Yeah.
it's you guys are wanting to make something that you're proud of, that you'd be willing to use, and you feel comfortable selling to people knowing that here's a high performance rod. This isn't just a kayak thing. This is an angling thing. This is a fishing thing. You guys you put a lot of thought into it. As Scott said, he definitely fishing nerded it out. So
yeah, to be honest, like we understand, like we're not saying that you've got to use a kayak specific rod in order to go out there. Obviously, that's not the case. What we're trying to do is create a tailored experience, right? So much like if you're going to go out and you're a paddler, you could choose a touring paddle, with a touring blade if you really wanted to, if you're going to go long distance. But a kayak fisherman who's paddling doesn't necessarily want to use that kind of a paddle, right? So they might go for the one that's designed for kayak fishing, that's a little bit wider, gives you a little bit more burst, a little bit more power. Same thing with like vests, whether it's an NRS that's made with the pockets and the things that kind of make kayak fishing a little bit more enjoyable and give you a little bit more accessories and kind of tailor it. It's the same thing, right? We're trying to give you a rod that essentially is tailored for a kayak fisherman, that's more comfortable for a kayak fisherman, but at the same time, it's just a kind of a nice like overall experience with high quality components. That was the other thing too, is just making sure like you said, we didn't cheap out on the components. We wanted to give you like the absolute best that we could find in all categories.
Well, and we love the kayak community. I mean, we're entrenched in it ourselves. So to hear back from fellow anglers on what they want, like right now I'm building a swim bait rod for a friend that, he's able to tell me exactly what he wants and kind of just know exactly what he is thinking when he says he wants the parabolic bend. And so we care about the kayak community too. So.
And that's cool too, because it seems like a lot of people that are in the industry, in the kayak fishing industry, they're also part of the community, and that's what makes it awesome. I can't tell you how many people me and Josh have talked to on the show that they go out and fish their local trails and they build something for the anglers in the trail, which is pretty sweet. Yeah. I think we just talked to the guy last night or 2 days ago. I forget. Who am I thinking of? It just slipped in my mind. Innovative Sportsman.
Yeah, he talked to Trey Leach, the Innovative Sportsman. He makes the torpedo mounting accessories and the rock guard and that sort of thing. But I mean, he wasn't even really into kayak fishing when he got introduced to it. He got approached to make some stuff for Jeff Little, and boom, he got into it, I guess. And it's a pretty cool story. But yeah, it's that's the beauty of the community as a whole. I mean, it's got its ups and downs, just like any group of people do. But it's cool to see that people take it seriously, and it's really neat. What my favorite thing is to see people forming companies out of the passion that they have for this. It's something that I wish and hope to do someday myself. I just have no good ideas, or any original ones at that. But it's really cool to see people do that. You take a passion and you can form work out of it, and it makes it that much more enjoyable when you enjoy what you're doing, and it makes it easier to go to work every day, that sort of thing. So, but let's get into the guides, because I have a question in regards to guides, and I keep asking all of everybody that we talk to that builds rods. This is my new thing, but go ahead and tell us about the rods. I see you have guides. Yeah, guides. I'm sorry. I'm staring at Yakrods real big, but
I can't even think. I want to know what your question is.
All right, well, let's go ahead and talk. You guys tell us about what guides you're using and what the thought behind that was.
Scott, you want to do it?
Yeah, sure. So essentially, we're using the microwave air guides. So we looked around. We looked at Fuji. We looked at a bunch of different ones. Like I said, we kind of fussed over a lot of the components of the rod. And this is the one that for us kept coming up over and over and over again. It's been big in the custom rod community for a long time. And they're super popular. They just kind of necessarily haven't migrated over. I think you're starting to see them now. I think Cashin's got some now on some of their rods and such. And there might be a few here and there, but for the most part, it's not really, hasn't really fully migrated over to the mainstream. What I really liked when we ended up speaking with this company and we really kind of diving into it was essentially that they offered kind of two ways that they went about it, right? So, you can essentially, when you're talking about your guides, you can try to reduce line slap. So if you want to improve casting distance, accuracy, things like that, you can reduce line slap. That's going to be your biggest return. Or you can polish the inside ring and try to get that ultra fine polish to try to reduce, the friction of the line going through it, right? So there's two ways you can kind of tackle it. For us, what we found was that essentially that we felt that the microwave air guide system provided the most bang for your buck. It's going to get you out there. It's probably the most comprehensive system for reducing line slap, which is what we felt like ultimately was going to give us that casting and performance improvement.
It's interesting. That's what caught my eye when I first pulled these up. I was like, oh, they got microwave guides on those. I had a rod that had microwave guides on it, and I was going to mention the line slapping thing. It is incredible how smooth line comes through that guide. It blew my mind.
So that is the number one feedback we have on our rods is I can cast this thing a mile.
Yeah. Yeah. The first time I cast it, I threw it way too far. I was like, wow. Yeah. It's a noticeable difference. It's crazy.
Yeah. No, it really is. Even in the wind. I was in the wind a couple days ago and didn't expect to be okay. And it just threw it out there.
Yeah. And the American Tackle actually does a video on YouTube you can find. They do a side-by-side comparison with a microwave guide and a regular one. And you see the line just going through that guide real nice and tight through the microwave guide. And on the other rod, it just slaps the rod, and it's crazy. I like it.
Yeah, I knew you'd notice that right away, Brad.
Yeah. Well, I heard about it for like the last 3 years or something from John Graves. So finally checked one out. I was like, wow.
Hey, do they have a patent on that design? I'm assuming they do, right?
Yes. That can't be your new business.
Yeah.
Almost.
I was
Sorry. Sorry,
Right.
Josh, you're stuck behind the mic.
I know, dude. I'm just sitting there like, we're still working on people's lawns. Nah. But so here's my question. Have you guys tried this yet? I have a few friends have talked about this before, of where they're taking the guides on casting rods and having it twist to the bottom
Spiral
of the
run.
rod. Yeah, spiral run.
Yeah, so yes, this is Tandi and I went back and forth on this quite a bit. So I love the premise of the spiral wrap. I think it is such a cool thing. We really contemplated it for the rods, and it was just something that we felt like was maybe a little too far out there for the general market. It was something that I think it makes sense, especially, I know
a lot of walleye fishermen use it.
Yeah, I think it really depends on the application. It makes sense in certain applications, and it's a really cool concept. And I just think that it might be a hair too far out there right now for mainstream, but I can definitely see it being utilized in certain ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never actually seen one in person.
Well, Brad, you have, but you just aren't realizing what you're looking at, and it's really big in saltwater fishing. Like,
Okay.
so when you see those big casting setups where they've chucked out a huge bait and they got the huge thing set up, if you look closely, you'll see the guides twist, and that wrap happens, and it's, there's reasons behind it. From what I understand, it helps like with maybe the strength of the rod. I don't know. Like it's, I guess I'm not 100% sure of not necessarily the strength of the rod, but maybe you can elaborate on it, Scott. I've heard different kind of scenarios with it.
So essentially it's kind of torque, right? So the way that you wrap it, depending on the way, if you're left or right-handed and where your handle's at, it's supposed to help with the torque of the rod. So one of the things that they've noticed, like in saltwater fishing, which is why it's popular in saltwater fishing, is you don't necessarily want to have all that torque going in one direction. You want to try to equal out the rod as much as you can, especially when you have a really big fish on there. So that was kind of the premise behind it, essentially, was to try to do that. Some people say it'll improve casting distance. There's so many variables to it too. I mean, there's spiral wraps where they start off and they immediately transition underneath the rod, and then there's spiral wraps where they take a little bit longer of a transition. So there's a lot of different things that you can kind of do to really play around with it. I know we've kicked around the idea of messing around with it on like swim bait rods and things like that, or like Magnum swim bait rods, chucking out like big, 5-6 ounce swim baits. But not something necessarily that we've kind of really settled on, but it's a really cool premise if the application is right.
Mm-hmm. Right. So if somebody comes to you and wants a spiral wrap, would you do it for them?
I wouldn't wrap it just because I'm not competent.
Okay.
If I did a couple years of trial and error, and I think if I practiced a lot, I would, but I'm not just gonna wing it.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Makes sense.
Yeah, that's the hard part. Without really knowing the right spacing and the right transition and the right angles that we want to take on it, it would be difficult to. I would feel bad, I think, if we sent somebody a product that we just weren't 100% certain of.
Yeah.
So
I gotcha.
You could buy you guys some cheap GX2 ugly sticks, and you can practice and send them to Brad.
I would use them too. Heck yeah.
I mean, I've heard nothing but good things. I've heard people who've had custom rods made like that, and I've never really heard anything negative about it so far. So, but I like to ask everybody who's into rod building, that sort of thing. I like to ask about it because I thought it was super interesting. Because when somebody first mentioned it to me, I was like, "What? Like, what are you talking about?" And he's like, "You've seen it. You just don't notice that you've seen it. But if you watch." Most saltwater fishermen are using, especially with like you said, the big game type stuff. Like it's a lot of times it's their guides are wrapped and they're spiraled down. And I'm like, and then I started watching. I'm like, he's totally right. Never realized it. And he pointed out some, different aspects about it, and the ones that Scott mentioned. So it was the same things I had heard. So it's just kind of cool to ask people about it, see what their take is. Cause I know, and that's usually what it is. They're like, we would definitely be willing to try it, but it's like, is it marketable? Like right now, at this point, until like, is it worth the, R&D of it? And, maybe we do this, but how much money do we spend trying to perfect this versus how many rods do we actually end up selling? Because most people are a little against change. So, it's like, oh, well, I've done it this way for so long. So why would I switch up now, or try something different? So,
that little guy tiptoeing back there is adorable.
You see him? He's sneaking out.
Sneaking up on you. Yeah, I think that the premise is really interesting, especially, I mean, if you kind of imagine, right, that the like a spinning rod, right? You're not necessarily fighting the blank to keep a fish pegged. it's really you've got that nice bend, you've got everything going on for you, and you really are able to, on spinning rods, I feel like most times able to keep a fish pegged fairly easily. And I feel like part of that's you're not fighting the blank itself. So I almost think that would be one of the biggest attributes that it could offer to bass fishermen potentially in the casting world, is that that ability to kind of keep a fish pegged. You're not fighting the blank overall. I think that could be a really interesting concept. I would worry a little bit about braid and things like that being maybe a hair bit too abrasive repeatedly. I think you'd have to find the right tip, but yeah, it could be really cool. I definitely would. I would love to see it. I think it's a super interesting concept, and maybe something we'll explore one of these days.
It is interesting. It looks cool. I guess we talk about customization of the rod itself. Do you guys put if somebody wants their name on it or something? Do you guys do that?
So we don't really customize right now. That's it slows production down. And right now we've been pretty fortunate that the demand that we've had has been phenomenal. And the support that we've had has been it's been mind blowing. I think for us, coming out, we were just kind of expecting just, a couple here, a couple there. And we were just going to see how it went. We really didn't have any, I guess, huge aspirations,
right.
And they have the support that we have.
Just got stuck. We were okay if we just got stuck with a bunch of rods. We didn't know what to expect.
Heck yeah, I'd be happy with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially those.
No, so I mean, yeah, no kidding. No, I think that where we're at right now with the demand that we've had, just it really would slow it down quite a bit for us to try to tailor it to those little details.
The rod I'm doing is for one of our advocates. Just to throw the names out, we have the Duggar boys and Jim Cross, Justin, Ivan, Coey. We have a bunch of advocates that have bought our rods at a slight discount. So they're actually throwing out a big chunk of money themselves, but also trying them out and then, showing other people and offering other people a discount. So the rod I'm making is for Dan Hickson. He's a big swim bait guy. So he wants a big, beefy rod that's going to be kind of fun.
Here's where you can practice the spiral.
He asked about it.
Did he ask you about it?
No, I don't feel comfortable doing it yet. I mean, I can make him spin around the rod.
That's funny.
Yeah, that's kind of one of the cool things that now, so over this last year, what we've really done is really focused on okay, what is black line and what is that going to entail and what techniques is that going to cover? And now that we kind of nailed that down and we feel really comfortable with it, the line's set, now we get to have fun. So now it's now we're going in and we're creating specialty rods and we're starting to really play around with different unique things that we can kind of come up with and start looking at different blanks and, different manufacturers and really start kind of getting out there and really toying with where we can kind of take things here in the future. So the swim bait rod being a good example of something that we'll be, kind of playing around with and hopefully releasing sometime this year.
Interesting. Are you talking about bigger swim baits, I suppose, right?
Yeah, 3 to 8 ounce.
Yeah, that's cool. I don't know if I know a kayak specific rod that can throw those kind of things. You know what I mean?
So, if for those who are interested, the Black Line, they have 6 rods, or am I 8? Am I scrolling too fast? 6 or 8 in that series?
6.
Six of them. Okay, so they have different techniques here. They have drop shot finesse, spinnerbait, top water rod, Ned rig, light finesse, light crankbaits, jerk baits, crankbaits, treble hook, as well as frog flip and small swim baits. These are some sharp looking rods. I'm a huge fan of flat black, so you guys already got me there. But
I've always heard, are they a matte finish?
Or what?
Are your guys' rods like a matte finish instead of gloss?
No, they're gloss.
Okay.
Yeah,
Chris, the reason why I ask is because I heard somebody say that matte finish is more sensitive. I don't know if that was true or not.
I personally, I would think that the amount. So I guess, okay. I've got a lot of things rattling around in my head right now.
You keep tapping into his fishing nerd. He's like, yes.
This is like, I'm like, okay, how do I want to tackle this?
Nerd out.
I don't think that you're going to see a loss, that big of a loss of sensitivity. The amount, the kind of top coat that they're putting on is so, I mean, they're not gooping this thing on. You know, the guys that talk about the difference in like weight. So the two arguments that I've heard sensitivity and I've heard weight. Those being the two, right? So honestly, the amount that you're talking about, it's so minute that it wouldn't even. I don't even think you would register it. On the flip side of that, though, let's talk about you start talking about graphite, right? So part of the problem that you end up running into with graphite on occasion is that it's super sensitive, really responsive. But part of the problems that you run into with it is that if you slice into it, you cut it, you bash it, things like that, you damage the fibers. Exactly, you damage the fibers, and then you've lost your structural integrity of the rod. So, that top coat just provides you a little bit more protection overall. So that was, ultimately why we ended up settling on that and not going with that, kind of matte finish that everyone's kind of doing right now. That's a lot of the, the premium lines have that matte finish. And we were initially looking at that.
Because it's cheaper. It would be cheaper for us to get the matte finish.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my comment, erase it. It's not matte black. It looked like it in the picture, but now that I'm zooming in on it, I'm like, oh, wait, it's not. You guys are right. But no, that totally makes sense because I can't tell you how many rods I have probably literally broken just from nicking it against another rod and not even realizing it. And then you hook into a fish and snap it, and you're like, oh, why did that happen? And it's like, we're kayak anglers. We beat the daylights out of our gear, and, that makes complete sense. That little bit extra coating is – going to take the brunt of that simple nick as opposed to the actual fibers and the blank itself. So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, just a little bit of abrasion resistance. Anywhere you can get it. Like I said, it's just whatever you can do to just try to give a little bit more value on the rod and yeah.
Nerd.
That's funny. I think the last thing I have, Josh might have some more here, but talk about the warranty a little bit.
I'll let you go, Tandi. I've been talking too much. I'll let you.
We want to stand behind our gear, and we want people to be lifers. So, we had an issue just this week that I was able to rectify with a brand new rod. I mean, we want to go above and beyond issues. So if somebody's dropping, $300, we want them to know that it's if it's a fault of ours, we're gonna take care of it for them. So, yeah.
Nice. That's awesome. I mean, you guys are building a quality product and you care about it. So, it'd be safe to assume that you guys are going to stand behind your products and, rectify any manufacturing issues that may come about. So, it's, and the thing is, to be honest with you, like we all have to be honest with ourselves too. Like, let's not put blame where blame's not due. I've seen guys break rods and then look at me and say, I don't understand why that broke. And I'll be like, I'll tell you exactly why. You threw in that tree and you proceeded to whip it for 30 minutes until the rod broke. So I'm just going to throw that out there. I think it's your fault and not the rod companies. Call me crazy, but I don't think it's meant to go back and forth in extreme bend like this.
Well,
as fast and hard as you can go. So
that's what we're kind of banking on, is that most people have integrity. I think there's people that are going to send us junk that they broke in half, and that they did it. But for the most part, we trust the community. We want to stand, and most of our components, like American Tackle, the end caps are made here in Idaho, just down the street. So we're buying things locally from companies that stand behind the product too. Cool. So we just want to serve our community.
I can.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, I feel like, we take great lengths with, the components and everything that we've done, but at the same time too, like we static test all these rods before we ship them out. We test them, we look over all the components. We look over the finish of it. We look over every little aspect of it before we send it out to make sure that there's no, kind of craftsmanship or defects in the manufacturing, so that we can catch that. I mean, generally speaking, when you load that rod, the first couple times, if it doesn't snap, it's not going to snap unless you've got some sort of cut or nick or something like that that's going to cause it. It'll fail on you the first couple bends on that. And so, we really we test a lot of them. We make sure that, before we send it out, that it's been thoroughly vetted. And like I said, it's reputation's everything in the community. And we want to be able to stand behind our products, and at the same time want to be able to offer a warranty and a product to, the anglers that are using our stuff, and something that they can feel comfortable with. I mean, it's an investment, right? I mean, you're spending $295 on a rod. Mm-hmm. It's a tool, and that's how I look at it, right? Is, a fishing rod is essentially a tool. You enjoy your sport, you enjoy your hobby, you want to go out there and you want to be able to compete, or you want to be able to fish for fun and be able to enjoy it as much as you can. The equipment that you take out there with you, over time, you kind of just slowly build up, and you want to get to that top notch thing. And that's, where we want to be able to offer is to have that high quality experience, but at the same time, give you that peace of mind, knowing like, okay, cool, they're going to stand behind their product and back me if something were to happen. So
yeah, we have a guy right now that just loves the Ned rig rod. He loves it. I mean, and if anything ever went wrong with that on our end, I'd feel horrible, because he absolutely loves this rod. He's a big Ned fisherman, and he's never used such a good Ned rod. Our Ned rod is a little different, so it's a unique experience. But I mean, if something goes wrong with that rod, we're going to take care of him,
Yeah, awesome. I love the Ned rig. It's fun.
Well, tell us what's different about the Ned rig rod that you guys are making.
It's kind of a secret. It's a little bit different. Medium light. Yeah, don't tell us. It's got 100% nerdy all over it.
That's cool.
That's awesome. Cool. Well, yeah. I think we'll wrap it up here. Is there anything else you guys would like to add before we end the show?
No, I mean, I appreciate you guys having us on. If you have any questions, I feel free to reach out to us. You can, email us at hello@yakrods. We have our, social media handles at Yakrods. Feel free. You have any questions, anything you want to ask us, we're more than willing to engage. Like I said, we're active in the community, and we're happy to chat about the rods.
Sweet.
Yeah, we appreciate your guys' show.
Well, I appreciate you guys taking the time to come on the final cast and talk about Yakrods. And, I wish you guys continued success with the company, and I'll be excited to see what else you guys bring to the table. Let us know when you build this giant, big ass swim bait rod. I'd like to brag about it, especially when you put the spiral guides on it.
We'll use your guides.
Okay. But Brad, did you have anything else, bud?
Nope, we're good.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Not a problem.
Yeah, thank you.
This episode is going to be, it's going to be a couple weeks after the fact. So,
hey, hold on. I was going to say that this is going to be after Dale Hollow trip. So I was going to ask, how was your trip?
I don't know yet. We'll see. But yeah, so thank you very much for coming on. And like I said before, if you guys ever want to come back on, you want to talk about anything new that you guys are doing, you're always more than welcome to come back. Feel free to just reach out to us. And with that, we'll wrap it up. And we'll see you guys next Thursday on the final cast. Thank you.
See ya.
Thanks for tuning in to another killer episode on Paddle and Fin. Don't forget to go check out our website at paddle_and_fin.com. Don't forget to check out the YouTube channel at Paddle and Fin. If you got a question, comment, want to hear from a future guest on a future episode, feel free to email us at paddle_and_fin@gmail.com. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Paddle and Fin on Facebook and Instagram. Shout out to our show supporters, Angler. The Angler button and app just makes for a better time on the water and creates a virtual logbook for every fishing outing out on the water. Shout out to Rocktown Adventures, located in Northern Illinois, for all your kayaking, camping, and hiking needs. Shout out to Jig Masters Jigs. When in doubt, get the jig out. Go to jigmasters.com